Take this and clean the toilet.
What? No! Let him go! We're taking you out!
That morning, Amara was resting in the staff room, exhausted after starting work before dawn. The faint hum of cleaning machines and distant chatter of office staff filled the quiet. She was just about to close her eyes when her supervisor's badge beeped at the door. Amara, the CEO says the toilet isn't clean enough. Go back and fix it. Now. Amara froze. Her jaw dropped. She had cleaned that toilet hours ago. Shock turned to irritation, but she squared her shoulders and grabbed her cart. She pushed through the gleaming hallway of Kenneth Ockerich's penthouse-level office. The door was ajar, and she could see him on a video call, the glow of his laptop highlighting the sharp lines of his expensive suit. Amara quietly stepped in, trying not to interrupt, planning to just finish her work and leave. Then she saw it. The pristine bathroom she had just polished. Ruined. Toilets left smeared, water splashed everywhere. A mess only a careless billionaire could make. Rage bubbled up inside her. Without a word, she stormed into his office. "Kenneth!" she shouted. He barely had time to look up before Amara grabbed him by the arm, dragged him toward the bathroom, and shoved a toilet brush into his hand. "You're cleaning this mess," she barked, eyes blazing. "Now! Don't even think about arguing," he stammered, caught off guard by her audacity. While the camera lens in your mind sees this proud billionaire humbled by a woman tenacious enough to make him face the chaos he caused. If you love intense, dramatic stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and comment below. Amara arrived that morning, her heart pounding, but her head held high. The city's skyline shimmered through the glass doors of Kenneth Ockerich's company as she stepped into the lobby. Polished floors reflected her shoes, and the scent of expensive coffee lingered in the air. She gripped the strap of her bag tightly, smoothing the wrinkles of her simple uniform, her hands steady, even though her mind raced. The HR office was buzzing. Young women, barely out of school, were seated nervously, fidgeting, their eyes darting toward the executive doors. One by one, they were called in. Some stumbled on their words, others smiled too brightly, as if charm could make up for skill. Kenneth had sat behind his desk, unimpressed, tapping his fingers, his gaze sharp and critical. 50 young women had walked in and out, each leaving him colder, more frustrated. None had the presence he sought, not the poise, not the calm command of space. Then the assistant called her name. "Amara, the CEO will see you now." She nodded, her breath shallow but her expression serene. She walked in without hesitation. Kenneth looked up, expecting another nervous, fidgeting candidate. Instead, he found a woman who met his gaze without fear, whose calm confidence seemed to fill the room. "Good morning," she said softly but firmly. "I'm Amara. Thank you for the opportunity." Kenneth leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You've applied for janitorial work?" he asked, his tone carrying a hint of disbelief. "Yes, sir," she replied. "I understand the responsibilities, and I can assure you, the work will be done efficiently and thoroughly." He raised an eyebrow. "And why should I hire you over the dozens of others I've seen today?" Amara's eyes didn't waver. "Because I do more than clean, sir. I notice details. I care about the people around me, and I take pride in the work that others consider small. If you want excellence, you must demand it from the person willing to see it as important. That person is me." Kenneth felt something stir within him, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and amusement. Most candidates tried to charm him with smiles or flattery. Amara, with nothing but quiet conviction, made him pause. "You speak as if cleaning toilets and offices is a sacred duty," he said, his voice a low chuckle. "It is, sir," she said without flinching. "Every job has dignity. Every space deserves respect. Every person deserves honesty, If you want work done properly, it cannot be rushed. It cannot be faked. It must be cared for. Kenneth leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. And you are certain you can handle the pace here? I don't tolerate mistakes. I expect precision. Discipline. Amara nodded. Sir, I can handle it. I've handled far more with far less. He studied her longer, watching the quiet fire in her eyes. There was no arrogance, no pleading, only confidence and a strength that seemed rare, almost threatening to him in its honesty. All right, he said finally, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You start tomorrow. Don't disappoint me. She inclined her head respectfully. I won't, sir. As she left the office, Kenneth felt a strange lightness, a stir in his chest he hadn't expected. Most people intimidated by him or fawned. But this girl, she had walked in like she owned nothing yet commanded everything. And in that calm, confident silence, Kenneth realized, perhaps for the first time in years, that he had underestimated the power of one person's conviction. The penthouse office was cold in every sense of the word. Cold in temperature, cold in color, cold in spirit. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls framed the sprawling African metropolis below, a city that never slept, a city that groaned and glittered at the same time. From that height, the traffic looked like toy cars, the people like moving dots, their struggles invisible to the man standing alone by the window. Kenneth Ockrick stood with his hands in his pockets, tailored suit fitting him like armor. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. Powerful, untouchable. He exhaled slowly, eyes roaming the city as though it belonged to him. In his mind, it did. Every building, every road, every ambition below was something to be conquered, controlled, or bought. Behind him, the door opened softly. The faint squeak of a cleaning cart broke the heavy silence. Good morning, sir, Amara's voice said gently. Kenneth did not turn. You're late, he said flatly, still staring at the city. Amara paused. She glanced at the wall clock, then at the schedule clipped to her car. Sir, with respect, I am not late. My shift for this floor begins at 9. It is 9 on the dot. He turned slowly, eyes narrowing as he took in her appearance. The plain uniform, the rubber gloves, the cleaning cart that looked out of place in his kingdom of glass and gold. When I am in the office, I expect the place to already be spotless, he said. I don't like seeing people working around me. It's distracting. Amara met his gaze without flinching. Then you should adjust the schedule, sir. I clean according to the company's timetable, not according to moods. Kenneth scoffed. Moods? Do you know who you're talking to? Yes, sir, she replied calmly. I know exactly who you are. And I know who I am too. I am the one responsible for keeping this place clean. If you want it done properly, you allow me to do my job. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink. The billionaire CEO stood by his luxury desk, polished wood reflecting the city lights, while the janitor stood by her cart, mop leaning quietly against its side. Suit and uniform, power and service. Two worlds colliding in a space of glass and silence. Kenneth laughed, a short, humorless sound. You have a lot of confidence for someone pushing a cleaning cart. Amara's lips curved into the faintest smile. And you have a lot of anger for someone who has everything. The words landed softly, but they carried weight. Kenneth stiffened. Watch your tone, he snapped. People lose their jobs for less. Amara lowered her eyes briefly, then lifted them again, steady and unafraid. If I am to lose my job for speaking the truth respectfully, then perhaps this is not a place that values honesty. But I will not be spoken to like I am invisible. Silence hung between them. The city hummed below, unaware of the quiet war being waged in a glass tower above it. Kenneth studied her, irritation mixing with something unfamiliar. No fear, No begging. Just calm logic standing its ground. Fine, he said at last. Do your work, but be quick about it. I always am, sir, Amara replied, rolling her cart forward. As she moved past him, the faint scent of soap and clean water followed her. Kenneth watched her for a second longer than he intended to, unsettled by the strange feeling that, in his own kingdom, he had just been challenged by someone who owned nothing but her dignity. The open-plan floor buzzed with nervous energy that morning, the low hum of keyboards and muted phone calls blending into a restless rhythm. Glass walls separated power from obedience, but fear seeped through every corner. Amara pushed her cleaning cart slowly between the rows of desks, her movements quiet, almost invisible, the way people like her were expected to be. Then Kenneth's voice cut through the air like a blade. Do you have any idea what you've done? The entire floor went silent. Heads bowed, screens froze. A young man stood trembling in front of Kenneth's glass office. His fingers clenched around a tablet, knuckles white. I followed the procedure, sir, the junior staff member stammered. The server delay wasn't from my end. I reported it immediately. Kenneth stepped closer, his presence towering. Excuses, he said coldly. I pay you to solve problems, not to explain them. Your incompetence cost this company millions in 1 hour. The young man swallowed hard. Sir, with respect, the fault was escalated. The system... Enough, Kenneth barked. You think loyalty means hiding behind process. Loyalty means you make sure I am never embarrassed. Fear of losing your job should make you sharper, not slower. Amara stopped. The mop in her hand rested against the floor. She looked at the young man's face, pale with humiliation, then at Kenneth, whose words landed like blows. Something in her tightened, not anger, but a quiet, steady resolve. She set her cart aside and stepped forward. Sir, she said calmly. Every eye turned. The audacity of a janitor breaking the invisible rule of silence was almost shocking. Kenneth glanced at her, irritation flashing. This doesn't concern you. Get back to your work. It concerns the work, Amara replied evenly. And the people who do it. He folded his arms. Speak quickly. Amara's voice did not rise. It did not shake. You say you want loyalty, but what you are demanding is fear. Fear makes people hide mistakes. Fear makes them lie. Fear makes small problems grow into disasters. Murmurs rippled through the floor. The junior staff member looked at her, eyes wide, as though she had spoken the words he could not afford to say. Kenneth scoffed. You think you understand leadership? I understand outcomes, sir, Amara said. If you want a team that protects you, you build trust. If you rule by fear, they will protect themselves instead. Today, you are not teaching him to be loyal. You are teaching him to be silent. The room seemed to hold its breath. Kenneth opened his mouth, ready to cut her down, but no words came. Her logic had slipped past his defenses, sharp and undeniable. He glanced at the young man, then at the dozens of faces watching, then back at Amara. So, what would you do? He asked quietly. I would ask what failed, she said. I would fix the system, and I would let him leave this room knowing he is valued, not broken. A company grows stronger when people feel safe to tell the truth. Silence settled, heavy and uncomfortable. Kenneth straightened his suit, his jaw tight. For the first time, he waved the young man away without another word. The staff member nodded quickly and retreated, relief and disbelief mixing on his face. As the floor slowly returned to its uneasy rhythm, Kenneth's eyes lingered on Amara. Irritation burned there, but beneath it stirred something new. Curiosity. Intrigue. The unsettling awareness that the woman with the mop had just said what no executive had ever dared to tell him. Kenneth slammed the door of his private bathroom behind him, his chest heaving, his thoughts burning hotter than the steam rising from the marble floor. The meeting had gone badly. Investors had questioned his judgment. Partners had hesitated, and for the first time in years he had felt challenged. He yanked at his tie, flung it on the counter, and in a reckless surge of anger, treated the pristine space with careless disrespect, splashing water, smearing dirt, leaving the toilet in a disgusting state, as though the room itself had offended him and deserved punishment. Then he straightened his suit, wiped his hands, and walked out without a backward glance, carrying his rage into another important video call. Minutes later, Amara pushed her cart into the bathroom, humming softly as she worked. The song died on her lips the moment she saw the mess. The gleaming marble, the polished fixtures, the place she had cleaned with care that morning, now violated. She stood still, breathing slowly, eyes scanning the chaos. Then her jaw tightened. This was not carelessness. This was contempt. She set down her mop, turned on her heel, and marched straight toward Kenneth's office. The glass door was half open. Inside, Kenneth stood before a large screen. Executives from different countries staring back at him in neat squares. "We will proceed with the acquisition by Friday," he was saying, voice smooth, controlled. Amara walked in. No knock. No apology. "Sir," she said clearly. Kenneth shot her a warning look. "Not now." She stepped closer. "It is now." The executives on the screen exchanged puzzled glances. Kenneth lowered his voice, fury simmering. "Get out before you embarrass yourself." "You've already embarrassed yourself," Amara replied calmly. She reached for his sleeve. Kenneth jerked away. "Have you lost your mind? Come and see what you did," she said, her grip firm as she pulled him toward the door. The guards moved instantly, stepping between them. "Madam, please step back," one of them said, placing a protective hand on Kenneth's shoulder. "Let him go," Amara said, her eyes never leaving Kenneth's. "Let him face what he left behind." Kenneth shook them off. "Get her out of here." The guards held the line, shielding him from the humiliating sight of being dragged through his own office. The video call buzzed with awkward silence before someone coughed, and the screen went dark. Kenneth's face flushed with rage. He straightened his jacket, his pride wounded deeper than any insult. "Both of you," he snapped at the guards. "You saw what was happening and you waited. You allowed this nonsense to escalate." "Sir, we were trying to de-escalate the situation," one guard said carefully. "I don't pay you to think," Kenneth roared. "I pay you to act. You're fired. Both of you. Leave my office now." The guards froze, shock etched across their faces. Amara stared at Kenneth, disbelief and disappointment settling into her eyes. The room felt suddenly smaller, heavier, as the consequences of his rage lingered in the air, unspoken but undeniable. The door to Kenneth's office closed with a soft, final click, sealing the silence inside. The air was thick, heavy with the aftermath of anger. The city outside the glass walls continued to move, unaware that 2 livelihoods had just been shattered in a moment of wounded pride. Kenneth stood by his desk, breathing hard, his jaw tight, his reflection in the glass looking back at him like a stranger he did not recognize. Amara did not leave. She stood there, her hands resting on the handle of her cart. Eyes steady, voice calm. "Bring them back." Kenneth turned slowly. "What did you say?" "You heard me, sir," she replied. "Bring them back. Your pride was hurt, so you broke their livelihoods. That is not leadership. That is cruelty." His eyes darkened. "You are crossing a line, Amara. Those men work for me. I decide who stays and who goes, and that is exactly the problem," she said quietly. "You think power means your anger should have no consequences. Those guards were only doing their job. They protected you. And you punished them for it. Kenneth let out a sharp laugh. You want to lecture me on consequences? You? A cleaner? She took a step closer, unafraid. I am a worker, just like them. When you fire people in anger, you don't just send them home. You send hunger to their houses. You send shame to their children. You send fear into their tomorrow. Think about that. He lipped away, his hands clenching into fists. This is none of your concern. It is my concern, Amara said, her voice still even, but firmer now. Because I will not work in a place where people are treated as disposable. Silence stretched between them. The hum of the city pressed against the glass. Kenneth felt something twist in his chest, an irritation he could not shake, mixed with an unfamiliar discomfort. Rehire them, Amara continued. Give them their jobs back. With back pay. Or I walk out of this office right now, and you will never see me here again. Kenneth snapped his head toward her. Is that a threat? It is a boundary, she replied. He stared at her, disbelief flickering across his face. You would quit over 2 guards? I would quit over injustice, Amara said softly. And I would rather be poor than be silent in the face of it. Kenneth's lips curled in disdain. You're brave behind that uniform, he said. She met his gaze without blinking. No, sir. I am honest. And right now, you are being a coward. The word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Kenneth's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to him like that and walked away alive in his company. For a long moment he said nothing. The power in the room shifted, invisible but undeniable. Finally, he exhaled slowly and turned toward his desk. His fingers hovered over the intercom. He hesitated, pride battling reason, anger wrestling with something that felt uncomfortably like truth. HR, he said at last, his voice lower than before. Reinstate the 2 guards. Full back pay. Effective immediately. He released the button and stood still, as if the weight of the decision had settled on his shoulders. Amara did not smile. She only nodded. Thank you for choosing to be better, she said quietly. Kenneth did not look at her, but inside him, something had shifted, something small yet unsettling. Her conviction had pierced a place he did not know was still soft. Something quiet but powerful shifted between them after that day. The office did not change. The glass still gleamed. The air still smelled of money and ambition. But the rhythm of Kenneth's world began to bend around the presence of one woman with a cleaning cart. He started leaving small messes behind without admitting it to himself. A coffee cup abandoned on the edge of his desk. Papers scattered where they had been neatly stacked. A smear of ink on the conference table. Each time he would pretend indifference, yet his ears strained for the soft rattle of wheels in the hallway. When Amara arrived, she would pause, take in the disorder, and sigh softly. Sir, she said one morning, lifting the empty cup. Is it pride that makes you forget where the bin is, or is it habit? Kenneth smirked. Maybe I like to test your thoroughness. Then you should test your own, she replied calmly, placing the cup in the bin. Leadership is not only about vision. It is about example. In the narrow hallway outside the boardroom, their conversations became brief but strangely deep. He would step out of meetings heavy with numbers and power plays, and find her wiping fingerprints from the glass. You clean the same place every day, he said once. Doesn't it feel pointless? Nothing done with care is pointless, Amara replied. People pass through here. They leave parts of themselves behind. My work is to remind them that this place is shared, not owned by one man. He frowned. Everything here is owned by the company, and the company is owned by people, she said. People who go home to families. People who carry worries into these halls. If you forget that, this building becomes empty, no matter how full it looks. Another day, as they stood by the elevator, Kenneth spoke without looking at her. You talk about community as if it is an investment. It is, she said gently. Just not the kind you can measure in profit. Community pays back in trust. Responsibility pays back in loyalty. Values pay back when money fails you. He scoffed. Money doesn't fail. It does, Amara said. It just fails quietly when you need peace and all you have is noise. The words lingered with him long after she had moved on, her cart disappearing around the corner. Soon, Kenneth found himself listening for her, before he realized he was doing it. The soft creak of wheels, the faint clink of bottles, the gentle rhythm of her presence moving through his glass kingdom. When the hallway was silent, something in him felt unsettled. One evening he caught himself glancing at the door, irritated. "You're late," he said when she finally appeared. She checked her watch. "I'm on time, sir." He said nothing more, only nodded, surprised by the quiet relief that washed over him. In a world full of advisors who praised him and staff who feared him, Amara had become the only voice that spoke to him without calculation, the only mirror that did not flatter. And without noticing when it began, the most powerful man in the building started to wait for the sound of a cleaning cart. The day his girlfriend arrived, the office air felt different, charged with a tension that did not belong to spreadsheets or boardroom arguments. She came in with the confidence of someone used to being announced, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor, her accent foreign, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. Kenneth had barely stepped out of a meeting when she confronted him, her voice already rising. "So this is how you treat me now?" she snapped, dropping her designer bag on the couch in his outer office. "Weeks, Kenneth. Weeks of calling you, texting you, leaving messages. You don't pick up. You don't reply. Do you think I am a ghost?" Kenneth pinched the bridge of his nose. "Lower your voice," he said quietly. "You're in my office. That is exactly why I am here," she fired back. "Because this office has stolen you from me. You hide behind meetings and time zones as if I don't exist." "I've been busy," he replied, trying to keep his tone calm. "You know how things are when deals are closing." "Busy?" she laughed bitterly. "You were never too busy for me before. Or have you found something? Or someone more interesting?" Her words hung in the air, sharp and accusing. Kenneth opened his mouth to respond when the bathroom door clicked open. Amara stepped out quietly, gloves in her hand, cleaning tools tucked under her arm. She took in the scene with a brief glance, then looked away, choosing not to intrude. She moved to pass by them, her eyes lowered, focused on her work. The girlfriend noticed her and scoffed. "Excuse me," she said sharply. Amara did not respond, not out of pride, but out of habit. She kept walking, giving space to what she assumed was a private argument. "Hey, did you hear me?" The girlfriend snapped, stepping into her path. Amara paused. "Is there something you need, ma'am?" The woman's lips curled. "You walked past me without greeting. In my country, that is disrespect." Amara's voice remained calm. "I did not mean any disrespect. I am here to work." Before Kenneth could react, the girlfriend's hand flew. The slap echoed through the glass-walled office, sharp and humiliating. "Don't ignore me when I speak to you," she hissed. Time seemed to freeze. Kenneth stepped forward. "Hey, that's enough." But Amara had already recovered. Her eyes lifted, steady and cold. In one swift motion, she returned the slap, firm and unmistakable. "Do not touch me again," Amara said, her voice low but cutting. "I am not your child. I am not your servant. I am a human being." The girlfriend staggered back, hand to her cheek, disbelief flooding her face. You slapped me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes," Amara replied. Because violence does not become respect when you are rich or angry. If you have a problem with him, speak to him. Do not lay your hands on me. The room fell into stunned silence. Kenneth stood frozen, caught between shock and a strange, reluctant admiration. The girlfriend's eyes filled with tears. Pride crumbled into humiliation. She grabbed her bag, her voice trembling. This is what you allow in your life now. This is what you have become. She turned and rushed out, her sobs echoing faintly down the corridor as she fled the building. Amara bent to pick up her cleaning tools, her hands steady again. She walked past Kenneth without another word, leaving behind a silence heavier than any argument. The morning came, and the hallway remained unnaturally quiet. No soft rattle of wheels. No familiar clink of bottles. Kenneth stepped out of his office, his eyes drifting down the long glass corridor before he realized he was looking for something. The silence pressed against him. She's late again, he muttered to himself, irritation flickering across his face. He walked toward the elevator, then stopped, turning back as if he had forgotten something important. His assistant, Tola, noticed his pause. Is everything all right, sir? Where is the cleaner assigned to this floor? Kenneth asked, pretending indifference. Tola checked her tablet. Amara? She hasn't signed in yet, sir. Make sure she understands punctuality is not optional, he said curtly. I don't run a charity. Yes, sir. Hours passed. The day dragged. Meetings blurred together. Kenneth found his eyes drifting to the doorway each time he heard a cart roll in the distance, only to feel a sharp, irrational disappointment when it was not hers. By midday, a different janitor appeared, a young man with nervous eyes and hunched shoulders. You, Kenneth called out. The young man flinched. Yes, sir. You missed a spot near the window, Kenneth said, gesturing vaguely. I'm sorry, sir. I will clean it again, sir. The young man replied quickly, scrubbing harder than necessary. Kenneth watched him for a moment, the fear in the man's movements unsettling him. Relax, he said, then caught himself, surprised by the word. Just do it properly. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. By the second day, the silence had grown heavier. Kenneth called his assistant again. Still no sign of her? No, sir, Tola replied. We've tried her number. It's not connecting. He frowned. People don't just disappear without notice. Sir, sometimes family emergencies. Emergencies don't erase basic responsibility, he snapped, then waved her away, annoyed at the strange edge in his own voice. Late that afternoon, an envelope was placed carefully on his desk. Plain, unmarked. He picked it up with mild irritation. What is this? A letter from Amara, sir, Tola said softly. Kenneth opened it. The words were few, almost cold in their brevity. Family emergency. My mother is ill. I must go home. That's it, he said aloud. Yes, sir. He read it again, slower this time. No apology, no notice period, no explanation. Tola hesitated. Her mother is ill, sir. Kenneth exhaled sharply. Everyone has problems, he said, though the words felt thin even to him. We don't all abandon our posts because of them. Yet when Tola left, the office felt unbearably still. The city outside the glass walls seemed muted, the usual sparkle of power dimmed by an unfamiliar hollowness. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. So this is how it ends, he murmured. You walk away, and that's all. The new janitor passed again, his cart squeaking softly. Sir, should I clean inside your office now? Kenneth looked up, then shook his head. Later, yes, sir. He waited for the sound of the cart to fade, surprised by the tightness in his chest. For the first time in his life, the office that had once felt like a fortress now felt like a cage. The silence was not peace. It was loneliness. That evening, as the lights of the city flickered on, Kenneth stood by the window again, his reflection staring back at him, tired and strangely small. He pressed the intercom. "Get me aid," he said quietly. Minutes later, his private investigator stood before him. "You sent for me, sir?" Kenneth did not turn from the window. "There's a woman who used to work here," he said slowly. "Her name is Amara." Aide nodded. "Do you want me to run a background check?" "I want you to find her," Kenneth replied. Aide raised an eyebrow. "Is this a business matter?" Kenneth's voice hardened, as if to hide the truth from himself. "Everything in my life is business." Then, softer, almost to himself, he added, "Find Amara." The city changed as they drove. The smooth highways gave way to narrower roads, the towering glass buildings slowly replaced by crowded shops, roadside stalls, and the warm chaos of everyday life. Kenneth sat in the back of his luxury car, the soft leather beneath him suddenly feeling too soft, too quiet, too distant from the world outside the tinted windows. "Are you sure this is the address?" he asked, his voice low. The investigator nodded. "Yes, sir. This is where she is staying. Her family home." Kenneth glanced out as children ran past the car, laughing. A woman balanced a tray of oranges on her head, and a group of men argued playfully beside a roadside mechanic's shop. The driver slowed, drawing curious stares. A black luxury car in this neighborhood was like a foreign object, loud even in its silence. People turned to look. Some whispered. Others simply stared. Kenneth shifted uncomfortably. "You can stop here," he said. The car rolled to a halt in front of a modest bungalow. Its paint slightly faded, but its small veranda swept clean. Flower pots lined the steps, their leaves dusty but alive. The front door stood closed, the curtains drawn. The quiet of the house set against the restless life of the street. "This is it," the investigator said. Kenneth hesitated. "Wait," he murmured. "Are you sure she's home?" "She was seen coming in this morning, sir," the investigator replied. Kenneth opened the door of the car and stepped out. The heat of the afternoon wrapped around him immediately, thicker and more real than the cool air of his office ever was. He adjusted his jacket, then let his hands fall to his sides, unsure of what to do with them. People nearby slowed their steps. A woman at a food stall whispered to another, "Who is that?" Kenneth took a few steps toward the bungalow, then stopped again. "This feels intrusive," he said quietly. The investigator kept a respectful distance. "You asked me to find her, sir." "I know," Kenneth replied, swallowing. "That doesn't mean I know what to say to her." He climbed the short steps to the veranda. The wood creaked beneath his polished shoes. He raised his hand to knock, then lowered it, then raised it again. His heartbeat felt louder than the street noise behind him. "Sir?" the investigator prompted gently. Kenneth exhaled slowly. "If she tells me to leave, we leave." He knocked. The sound was small, almost timid against the solid wooden door. The door opened slowly. Amara stood there, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before her calm returned, settling over her features like a familiar shield. "Kenneth," she said softly, "I didn't expect you here." I didn't expect to be here either," he replied, his voice uncertain in a way it had never been in his own office. "I came to check on you." She studied him for a brief moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." The bungalow was small but warm, filled with the quiet sounds of life. A kettle whistled faintly from the kitchen. The walls carried framed family photos, worn but lovingly arranged. The scent of herbs and clean linen hung in the air. From the inner room came the soft sound of breathing. "My mother is resting," Amara said, lowering her voice. "She's been weak, but today is a better day." Kenneth followed her into the room. An elderly woman lay propped against pillows, her eyes kind but tired. She smiled faintly at the sight of her daughter. "Mama, this is my former employer," Amara said gently. The woman nodded slowly. "You're welcome, my son. Thank you for bringing my child work in the city." Kenneth swallowed. "She's the one who carried us," he said awkwardly. He glanced around the room, then back at Amara. "Listen, I can arrange the best doctors, private nurses, whatever you need. Money is not a problem." Amara shook her head. "I know you mean well, that some things need presence, not money. She needs me here, not strangers." He nodded, chastened. As his eyes wandered, they caught on a framed photograph on the wall. Amara in a graduation gown, smiling brightly. Beneath it hung a framed certificate. His breath caught as he read the words. "Master's degree in clinical psychology," he murmured. "From? This is one of the top universities." Amara met his gaze. "Yes. You were a janitor," he said slowly, confusion rippling through him. "I took the job for fast cash," she replied gently. "Hospitals don't wait for salaries. When my mother fell ill, I needed money quickly. The janitor job paid weekly." Kenneth frowned. "But you stayed." She nodded. "I stayed because of you." He looked at her, startled. "I saw a brilliant man who was lost," Amara continued. "A little boy throwing tantrums because no one ever taught him how to name his pain. I stayed to be the mirror you never had." The words settled into the room, soft and heavy at once. Kenneth's chest tightened, emotion pressing at a place he had long sealed shut. He looked at Amara, really looked at her, and for the first time understood that the woman he had thought beneath him had been standing above him all along. Kenneth sank onto the edge of the sofa, the polished leather foreign and uncomfortable beneath him. His hands gripped his face, hiding the raw vulnerability he had never allowed himself to feel. The city's distant hum seemed to fall away, leaving only the quiet rhythm of the bungalow, the gentle breathing of Amara's mother, and the steady presence of Amara herself. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The walls, the glass, the wealth, the power, all the trappings he had spent a lifetime building felt suddenly meaningless. The truth of her sacrifice, her patience, her unwavering courage crashed into him like a storm. I have everything," he whispered, his voice breaking. He dropped his hands, letting them rest on his knees. Tears burned behind his eyes, spilling down his cheeks. "And I have nothing." Amara knelt beside him, her expression gentle, unshaken. She did not reach for him, did not speak too quickly. She let him own the weight of his realization before she guided him toward understanding. "Kenneth," she said softly, her voice steady, "you don't need me to return to teach you. You've seen the truth. You've felt it. You carry it inside you now." He shook his head, muffled sobs escaping him. "I don't know how. I don't know if I can change." "You can," she said, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Change is not about someone forcing you to be better. It's about choosing it, every day. You've learned what matters, not money, not fear, not control, but courage, responsibility, humility. That lesson is yours. Take it with you." Kenneth's hands trembled as he pressed them together. "I've never had anyone see me like this. Not as myself, not my mistakes, not my failures." Amar's gaze softened. "And now you do. You've seen the mirror. You've felt what it means to be human. That is enough to begin." He exhaled slowly, letting the weight lift just enough to feel the first stirrings of something he had forgotten. Hope. His eyes, still wet with tears, met hers. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice raw, "for seeing me, for not giving up on me." Amara smiled faintly, standing gracefully. I didn't save you, Kenneth. You saved yourself. The moment you were brave enough to see it. He sat back, trembling, staring at her, the bungalow, the small warmth of a life outside glass towers, and for the first time, felt the beginnings of a man who might finally understand that wealth without humanity was empty, and humility without courage was meaningless. 6 months later, the penthouse felt different. The sharp edges of Kenneth's office had softened. Plants lined the corners of the room, small bursts of green against the polished marble. The air smelled faintly of fresh flowers instead of only cold polish and expensive leather. He walked the corridors, stopping to greet staff by name, asking after their families, listening when they spoke. "Tolu, how is your mother?" he asked one morning, leaning against a desk. "She's well, sir. Thank you for asking," Tolu replied, surprised but pleased. "I mean it," Kenneth said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "It matters." His old arrogance remained only in memory, tempered now by patience and care. He had founded a medical crisis foundation in honor of Amara's mother, providing support to families who needed presence, not just wealth. And while he oversaw it all, he remembered the lesson she had taught him. True change is never imposed. It is chosen. Meanwhile, in a modest university hall, Amara walked across the stage, her mortarboard perfectly in place, the pride in her step unmistakable. Her mother, seated in the front row, clapped, her eyes shimmering with tears. Kenneth was there too, standing quietly at the edge, a rare smile lighting his face. He did not approach her yet. He watched. He saw the culmination of her dedication, her sacrifice, her brilliance. "Amara," her mother whispered, tears running freely. She hugged her mother tightly. "We did it, Mama," she said. Kenneth stepped forward then, and she turned, surprise and warmth in her eyes. "Congratulations," he said, his voice sincere, low, and full of respect. "You've finished something extraordinary." "Thank you, sir," Amara replied, bowing her head slightly, a faint smile curving her lips. He gestured toward the audience. "And I hope you know," he said softly, "that you taught me more than any classroom ever could. I've rebuilt my life because I finally learned how to see the world through eyes that matter." Amara looked at him, a mixture of pride and gentle amusement. "And I've rebuilt mine because I never lost sight of what I wanted, even when the world expected me to settle." They stood side by side, different yet equal, the chaos of wealth and struggle behind them, the future ahead bright and unbroken. In that moment, Kenneth realized the true wealth he had gained was not in money, deals, or titles, but in the lessons Amara had carried into his life and the courage to finally live them himself. He laughed softly, a sound unguarded and free. "So," he said, glancing at her, "does this mean I owe you a proper celebration?" Amara tilted her head, her eyes gleaming. "I think we've both earned it." The evening breeze slipped in through the open window, carrying the smell of rain on warm earth and the distant laughter of children playing in the street. The small bungalow glowed with soft yellow light. The dining table was simple but full steaming stew, fresh vegetables, a bowl of rice, and bread still warm from the oven. Kenneth sat stiffly on the chair, his expensive suit looking almost out of place in the modest room. Amara moved quietly between the kitchen and the table, serving, her presence calm, grounding. Amara's mother watched him for a long moment before speaking. "Eat, my son," she said gently. "In this house, nobody comes as a stranger." Kenneth forced a small smile. "Thank you, Ma. The food smells like home," she chuckled softly. "You look like a man who has forgotten what home smells like." He lowered his eyes. "Maybe I have." They ate in silence for a few seconds, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. Then her mother placed her spoon down carefully and folded her hands. Her eyes lifted to Kenneth, calm but heavy with meaning. "Kenneth," she said, "I asked you here today because I needed to see you with my own eyes. Not the rich man people talk about. Not the big man on television. I wanted to see the man who has been walking close to my daughter." Kenneth straightened. "I understand, Ma." She nodded slowly. "So tell me, what is your intention with Amara?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Amara froze where she stood, her hands tightening around the tray. Kenneth cleared his throat. "My intention is serious. I respect her. I admire her. I want to be in her life, properly, with honor. If she allows me, I want to marry her." Amara's mother studied his face, searching for cracks, for lies. "Words are easy," she said quietly. "Men with power have many beautiful words." "I know," Kenneth replied, his voice low, "but I am not here to play with her heart." Her mother exhaled slowly, as if letting go of something heavy she had carried for years. "Let me tell you something about Amara," she said. "She did not grow up with soft life. Her father was a good man. Poor, yes, but rich in heart. He used to wake up at 4 every morning to go and look for work. Some days he came back with money. Some days he came back with nothing but dust on his shoes and tears in his eyes." Amara swallowed hard, her eyes dropping to the floor. "One night," her mother continued, her voice trembling now, "he was coming back from a late job. A truck lost control on the highway. They said he died instantly, just like that. No goodbye, no last words. I became both mother and father overnight." Kenneth's jaw tightened. "I'm so sorry, Ma." She nodded, blinking away tears. "After he died, there were days we had nothing to eat. Days when Amara would pretend she wasn't hungry so I could eat. She was still a child, yet she carried the weight of this family on her small shoulders." Amara finally spoke, her voice soft. "Mama, please." Her mother raised a hand gently. "No, let him hear. Let him know the kind of daughter you are." She turned back to Kenneth. "This girl worked hard, Kenneth. She studied when others were sleeping. She prayed when others gave up. She became strong because life did not give her a choice." Kenneth felt his chest tighten. She's extraordinary." Her mother nodded. "Yes, and because of that, I will not watch any man come into her life and break what I struggle to hold together. Amara is everything to me. If you hurt her, you will not only be hurting a woman, you will be hurting the last piece of my heart." Kenneth's voice dropped to a whisper. "I would never forgive myself if I did that. I promise you, Ma, I will protect her. I will stand by her. I will not treat her as something temporary." She leaned forward slightly. "Life has taught me that promises are tested when things become difficult. When she disagrees with you. When she challenges you. When she refuses to bow to your pride. Will you still stand?" He nodded, eyes shining. "That is exactly why I respect her. She does not bow to fear. She makes me see myself clearly. Sometimes painfully, but clearly." Amara looked at him then, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. Her mother allowed a small, tired smile. "Good. Then hear this final thing from me. I am an old woman. I have seen love that lifts and love that destroys. If you choose my daughter, choose her fully. Do not bring half-love into her life." Kenneth pushed his chair back slightly and stood, bowing his head in respect. "I hear you, Ma, and I take your words seriously." The room fell quiet again. Outside, the laughter of children drifted in, life moving on as it always did. Amara's mother reached for her spoon once more. "All right," she said softly, her voice gentler now. "Let us eat. Heavy talks should not be done on empty stomachs." A faint smile touched Amara's lips. Kenneth sat back down, his heart heavier, but clearer than it had been in a long time. Kenneth did not announce his intentions. He did not call for applause. He simply began quietly, the way real change often begins. It started with small surprises. On random mornings, Amara would step out of the counseling center to find sealed envelopes waiting for her at the reception desk. Inside were books she had once mentioned in passing, therapy tools she had struggled to afford, handwritten notes that read, "For the work you do, the lives you touch." She would stare at the notes for a long moment, torn between gratitude and caution. "This man," she would murmur to herself, folding the paper carefully, "he never does anything small." Her mother would smile faintly and tease, "Just make sure his gifts don't become chains, my daughter." Amara would nod, thoughtful. Then came the day of her induction. The hall was filled with soft applause, the kind that carried respect, not noise. Her name was called, her achievements read aloud, and as she stepped forward in her simple, elegant dress, her eyes searched the room without knowing why. After the ceremony, Kenneth approached, not with cameras, not with speeches, just with a quiet presence. "Congratulations, Dr. Amara," he said gently. She frowned at the title, half smiling. "Please don't make me feel older than I am." He chuckled, then gestured toward the glass doors. "There is something outside. I hope you will not misunderstand." They walked out together. The sun rested softly on the street. A sleek, luxurious car waited by the curb, ribbons catching the light. Amara stopped short. "Kenneth, what is this?" He cleared his throat, suddenly unsure of his own wealth. "Transportation. So you don't have to stand in the rain waiting for buses after long days of carrying other people's pain." She shook her head slowly. "You can't keep doing this. I'm not buying you," he replied quietly. "I'm supporting the work you've chosen to do. There is a difference." She studied his face, searching for pride, for control, for the old Kenneth. She found none, only restraint. As if that wasn't enough, he handed her a slim envelope. "And a place," he added softly. "In the city, close to the center. For you and your mother. No rent. No conditions. If it ever feels like a burden, walk away." Her mother's eyes filled with tears when she heard. "My son," she whispered, holding Kenneth's hands with a trembling gratitude. "May God reward the kindness you are learning." Kenneth bowed his head. "Pray that I keep learning, Mama." The move was quiet. No sirens, no celebration. Just boxes, memories, and a small family stepping into a gentler chapter. On the balcony of the new home, the city lights blinked like distant stars. Amara stood beside her mother, watching the world breathe below them. "Do you think we belong here?" her mother asked softly. Amara took her hand. "We belong wherever we can breathe and still remain ourselves." From the street below, Kenneth looked up once, made sure the lights were on, then turned away, choosing for once not to possess the moment, but to let it grow on its own. The beach was dressed like a secret. Soft lanterns flickered along the sand, their warm glow kissing the waves as they rolled in, gentle and patient, as if the ocean itself had agreed to witness the moment. A small wooden platform stood by the shoreline, scattered with white petals. The sky was bruised with sunset, purple and gold bleeding into each other. Kenneth stood there in a simple linen seat. No guards, no noise, just his heart beating louder than the sea. He kept glancing at the narrow path between the palms, his palms damp with nerves. "I have negotiated billion-dollar deals," he muttered to himself, forcing a small laugh. "But this is the one that scares me." Amara arrived quietly, led by her mother under the excuse of a family dinner. The moment she saw the lanterns, the ocean, the man standing with his shoulders tight like a boy about to be punished by love, she froze. "Kenneth, what is all this?" Her voice trembled despite her composure. He stepped forward, the waves brushing his ankles. "It is a thank you," he began, then stopped, shook his head and corrected himself. "No, it is a truth. You changed my life. You taught me to kneel before my own flaws, and I don't want to walk the rest of my days without you beside me." He reached into his pocket, his fingers trembling, and sank to one knee. The sea seemed to hush. "Amara, will you marry me, not as a man who owns you, but as a man who is still learning to deserve you?" Tears welled in her eyes. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed by the simplicity of the moment. "Kenneth," she whispered, taking a step toward him. Then the calm was torn open by the sharp click of heels on wooden planks. A familiar voice sliced through the breeze. "So this is where you ran to hide." The ex-girlfriend emerged from the shadows, eyes blazing, a forced laugh trembling on her lips. "Romantic beaches now? After you ignored me for months?" She turned to Amara with open contempt. "Do you know who he is? He ruins women and replaces them with charity projects." Kenneth rose slowly, anger and shame colliding in his chest. "This is not the place," he said firmly. "Leave," the woman scoffed. "Oh, I will not leave until she knows the truth." She stepped closer to Amara, her voice dripping with venom. "He will tire of you. Men like him don't change. They only pretend until they are bored." Amara wiped her tears, her gaze steady, calm as still water. "You are speaking from your wound," she said softly, "not from the truth." The woman laughed bitterly. "Don't pretend you're better than me. You're just the next story." Amara stepped forward, her voice firm now, carrying across the beach. "No, I am not a story. I am a person who chooses with open eyes. If he fails, that will be his burden to carry. But your bitterness will remain yours if you don't put it down." She paused, letting the words land. "You came here to humiliate me because you are still measuring your worth by a man who has already walked away from the old version of himself. That is a heavy chain to wear." The ex-girlfriend's bravado faltered. Her eyes flickered, pain briefly surfacing before pride forced it back. "You think love makes you wise?" she snapped. "No," Amara replied gently. "I think healing makes you free." Silence stretched. The waves rolled in, patient witnesses. The woman's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from her posture. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her heels sinking into the sand, leaving crooked footprints that the tide slowly erased. Kenneth stood frozen, emotion thick in his throat. "I am sorry," he whispered. Amara looked at him, her eyes warm but unwavering. "You don't need to apologize for your past. You only need to be honest with your future." She then looked down at his still open hand, the ring catching the lantern light. A small, breathless laugh escaped her. "So, are you still asking me?" Kenneth dropped back to one knee, voice breaking with relief. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." Amara reached for him, lifting him up with her hands. "Then my answer is yes," she said softly, pressing her forehead to his. The ocean breathed around them, lanterns flickered brighter, and in that fragile, beautiful moment, love stood not as a fairy tale, but as a hard-earned promise between two souls who had learned, through pain, how to choose each other.